Mangalacharna. Mangalacharna. Start the class. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyavacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, Hare Krishna. So today we'll be covering text 3 of chapter 4. So it's very small, very tiny purport. So I've just got, I don't have a PowerPoint, but I will just share from database, and we can do it from there. I'll just share the screen 1 second. Okay. Text 3. Kasmin yuge pravritteyam stane vakena hetuna uta sanchodita Krishna kritavan samhitam munihi. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: in what period and at what place was this first begun? And why was this taken up? From where did Krishna, Dvaipaya and Vyasa, the great sage, get the inspiration to compile this literature? So just before we go on to the purport, just want to remind us of the scene. So we had, obviously we started a new chapter, and in the first verse, Vyasadeva is speaking, and he's mentioning that, Shonaka Rishi, he says here, the learned leader of all the rishis engaged in that ceremony. And now he is just about to address Suta Goswami. So then he says to Suta Goswami that, he is the most fortunate and respected. And he's asking him to please tell us the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, which he in turn received from Shukadeva Goswami. And then he's also continuing to ask Suta Goswami that about this conversation of Srimad Bhagavatam, this scripture. In what period and at what place was the Srimad Bhagavatam first spoken or first begun, and why? What was the reason for the Srimad Bhagavatam coming about? And where did Vyasa, the author of this scripture, where did he get inspiration to compile this? So obviously, because we're just focusing on this verse today, so we're not really going to cover the answers in any detail, because that will be covered in later classes anyway. So I don't want to take away from the speakers who will be, speaking on those verses. But we will have a look at the purport and see what we can discuss from there. So it's, as I said, it's a very short purport. It's one paragraph. So maybe, would anyone like to volunteer to read this for us? Hare Krishna.
I can read from.
Okay, sure.
Because Srimad Bhagavatam is a special contribution of Srila Vyasadeva, there are so many inquiries by the learned Shaunak Muni. It was known to them that Srila Vyasadeva had already explained the text of the Vedas in various ways up to the Mahabharata for the understanding of less intelligent women, Shudras, and fallen members of the family of twice-born men. Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all of them because it has nothing to do with anything mundane. So the inquiries are very intelligent and relevant. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you. So, so it's not so many points to cover here. It's saying Srimad Bhagavatam is the special contribution of Srila Vyasadeva. So why is it special contribution? Because we know he's contributed so much. I mean, pretty much all the Vedas originally has been contributed by Vyasadeva. So why is Srimad Bhagavatam his special contribution? So it relates to, as I said, I won't go into detail in the answers, but it does relate to this last question about where he got the inspiration to compile this literature. Because as we all know, Vyasadeva, he's written all the Vedas, and at the same time, even though he's done so much, he's still not feeling satisfied. There's a great dissatisfaction in his heart, and he's at first wondering, why is this? After writing so much, why am I still not satisfied? And then obviously Narad Muni, his spiritual master, comes and reveals to him the reason for his despondence, reason for his disappointment, that he's written so many things, described so many things, but he hasn't written directly about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, about his activities, his pastimes, his qualities, and so on. And because he hasn't explained that fully, properly, in detail, that is why he's feeling dissatisfied, because in a way, Narad Muni is, he's basically chastising his disciple in a way that, you've described certain things, but you've failed to describe the essence of all of these scriptures. And in some way, you've kind of cheated the people in that sense, that all these Vedas, they give all these different instructions, but they're not really describing pure devotional service. So now, following the guidance, instruction of a spiritual master, Vyasadeva then writes the Srimad Bhagavatam. So then, because this is the essence, this is the cream of all the Vedic scriptures, so that's why here Srimad Bhagavatam is described as the special contribution of Srila Vyasadeva. And then it says there are so many inquiries by the learned Shaunak Muni. We know the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is basically questions and answers. And this is also described as, you could say, the unique feature of the Vedic scriptures, Vaishnava scriptures, that they're all pretty much questions and answers. Srimad Bhagavatam is questions and answers, conversation within a conversation within a conversation. Bhagavad Gita questions and answers between Arjuna and Krishna. So throughout the theme is about inquiries. So here it's saying, the learned Shonak Muni, he is making so many inquiries regarding Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's saying because it's a special contribution of Vyasadeva, he's making so many inquiries. So because this is Srimad Bhagavatam, which I just said is the essence of all the scriptures, this is the essence of what we really need to know. So that is why specifically about Srimad Bhagavatam, he's making so many inquiries. And then, so yeah, as we said already, Srila Vyasadeva has already explained the text of the Vedas in various ways up to the Mahabharata. So in various ways, so meaning, or one way to look at it is, the Vedas are for everyone. And if they're for everyone, then that means, everyone is not at the same position in their life, in their spiritual life, or even in their material life. They're not all on the same platform. They're not all on the same level of advancement. So they require something different. And also they may not even have the same desires. They may not have any interest in spiritual knowledge at the point they are at in their life. So just to take them somewhere, then certain instructions are given. For example, just certain pious activities, sacrifices, penance. Not may not be specifically devotional service, actually being a devotee, but pious activities and certain things are recommended in the scriptures, so that they're at least starting their journey. They're somewhere, maybe on the mode of goodness. So that's why I said it's explained in various ways to, what's the word? To, I guess, facilitate. Facilitate everyone, so everyone can, pick up on something within the Vedas and follow that and make some kind of progress. And then, so specifically mentions Mahabharata. So, Mahabharata is, you could say, more easier to digest, especially in this age of Kali Yuga, but we don't have the time, attention span, interest, or maybe even the capacity to understand all these so many Vedic scriptures. We probably won't even know where to start. It may not seem very accessible, but then Mahabharata, what is it? It's basically pastime stories. So it's a lot more accessible, a lot more palatable for people. Easier to digest especially in the age of Kali Yuga. We can just see, just giving a mundane example, how people's attention spans are so much less, and they're not really interested in so many things that you see, for example, on YouTube. The most popular videos are actually the shortest videos. If a video is too long, then people lose interest. So that's just one indication of that. And yeah, generally we already know that most people are not interested in these kind of things, but we all know everyone is into stories, whether it's on the TV or movies or whatever it might be. Everyone loves a good story. Even devotees, love to hear the pastimes of the Lord. So everyone loves a good story. And for those who are still kind of on a somewhat materialistic platform, then Mahabharata, there's so much there. There's something for everyone, as they say. There's politics, there's war, there's romance, there's love, there's family drama, there's also the spiritual aspect of it as well, obviously. And there's so many different characters. So someone who will be interested in at least one of these characters, or they'll follow something within the Mahabharata. They'll pick up on something. So is kind of nice in that way. It's kind of all encompassing. And yeah, as I said, because it's in a story form, it's more popular in this age of Kali Yuga. And so then it says that it's been described for the understanding of less intelligent women, Shudras, and fallen members of the family of twice-born men. Then it says that Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all of these things because it has nothing to do with anything mundane. So it's saying, then it's saying the inquiries that have been put forth, they're therefore very intelligent and relevant because they're all focused on Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's all these questions are completely transcendental. Obviously, we do have to, it's there, so we do have to cover this point about less intelligent women, Shudras, and fallen members of the family of twice-born men. So, so I'm assuming probably we've covered this, we've come across this point or this issue before, since, we've in Chad, at least we've gone through the whole Bhagavad Gita. So obviously I've not been attending so often, but I'm assuming this point would have come up. But anyway, even if it hasn't, it's obviously a contentious issue, so I do want to address that. So basically, just some background. I'm also not so recently, but before, when I was staying at the manor, I was involved in the service called Krishna Wisdom, which is basically sharing Krishna consciousness with a Western audience, basically those who are very new to Krishna consciousness. So obviously at some point, the members of this group, who, as I said, they're very new to Krishna consciousness, they came across these statements from Srila Prabhupada, from the scriptures, about women being less intelligent. And obviously, as I said, they're all newcomers, so there was obviously a lot of confusion regarding that. And so then we kind of had to explain that, because we don't want anyone to have any misconceptions about this issue. So first I'm just kind of use the explanation that I gave to that group at that time. That obviously, first of all, Srila Prabhupada's statements. So I'm just going to be kind of reading as well from what I've written at that time, that Prabhupada's statements are according to the Vedic scriptures. So they're not just the opinions of a human male, and they're never an attempt to depreciate the value of women. They're not devaluing comments. And as we know from Srila Prabhupada's own example, that he was the most loving father to all his female disciples, and they always felt like his beloved daughters. So they never felt like Srila Prabhupada was ever devaluing them in any way. In fact, they felt that they were very dear to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada was so loving and caring. They had never met someone as loving and caring like that before. And just on a side point, if you want to read more about that, there's many accounts from Srila Prabhupada's female disciples. You can find this book on Amazon. I think it's available as an ebook as well. It's called A Bond of Love, Srila Prabhupada and His Daughters. I think Vishaka Mataji, our temple president, is one of the contributors to this book. Just a side point, if you're interested to find out more about his only accounts of his female disciples. It's very interesting. It's a very nice read, actually. So anyway, with that in mind, when Srila Prabhupada talks about intelligence, so I know I'm going to be speaking a bit on this. I know the whole verse is not about this point, but it's a very important thing to discuss. Okay, so Yeah. So basically, Srila Prabhupada here is not talking about, when we say intelligence, it's not about intellectual capacity, which is kind of considered in the West to be the definition of intelligence. But if this was about intellectual capacity, then there would be, no question of one gender possessing more of it than the other. We've all seen from our own experience, some women are far more intellectually brilliant than their male peers, and also vice versa. So obviously, to make like a general statement, one gender is more intellectual, that's obviously invalid. But no, Srila Prabhupada, he's talking about the natural differences, between male and female bodies. And when I say body, I mean also subtle body. So, the mind, the psychology of the male and female is different by nature. By nature means by design, by Krishna's design. Ultimately, they're meant to be different for a reason, for a purpose. So different, just like we have different pieces of clothing, they have different characteristics, different computer programs, they have different features. So similarly, the various bodies, the 8.4 million species of life, they all have different characteristics, different features, which are unique to those forms of life. And if there's no differences, what's the point in having so many different species of life? Why have 8.4 million if there's no difference? So as we all know from Bhagavad Gita, that we understand the factors that dictate the body will receive in our next life, and we know the desires that we have at the end of one lifetime, they were then given the most appropriate body in the next life to fulfill those particular desires. So just as we have the natural differences, natural features of the 8.4 million species of life, also the male and female bodies of all of these species, including human, are naturally, unavoidably different because they are given to us to fulfill different desires. Now, we don't know in our individual situation what those particular desires are. So we can only speak generally, like the reason that, I was given a male body may be very different, or the reason why, another man has been given a male body, or, the reason one soul has been given a female body may be very different from another. So it's all based on our individual desires and karma, depending on what body we get. And so, as I said earlier, these statements about the differences between male and female psychology and bodies, it's never meant to be a criticism or judgment, trying to show one is superior to the other, because obviously they both have their own strengths and weaknesses. It's not that just female body, male body has its own limitations and weaknesses, as we know as well. So basically, there's no ill motive behind pointing out these differences. It's just the Vedas, they're just objective. It's not just giving one person's opinion, it's objective. So that's kind of basically establishing what Srila Prabhupada's statement doesn't mean. We kind of said that it doesn't mean they have less intellectual capacity, because we know that's not true. So I'm not going to go through a whole article, but I did find an article which I used to explain when I explained with the Krishna Wisdom group, with these Westerners as well. They were very satisfied with this explanation. Basically, there's one female devotee in the UK who's also a qualified psychotherapist, who wrote on their blog a very nice explanation of this whole issue. So I won't go through the whole thing now, but I'll maybe ask one of the group leaders to share the link on the group afterwards, because it's very, very interesting. And it's probably the best explanation of this issue that I've ever come across, actually. So as I said, I won't go through it in detail, but just kind of, I guess, the main point of what this difference is actually. So just give me 1 second. Okay, so one point that is mentioned is that, yeah, here it is. So it's basically the Vedic text explain, I'm just reading a little bit from the article. The Vedic text explain intelligence as the ability to discriminate right from wrong, good from bad, one object from the other. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7. Intelligence helps to guide us in understanding the nature of something and helps guide the senses and therefore the mind. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3. From this, we can see the word intelligence does not refer to directly being smarter, but refers to the discriminatory ability. The ability to have clear intelligence is a quality of the mode of goodness, whereas being overcome by emotions, fluctuations in mood due to material hankering, this is a quality of the mind in passion. So when someone is overcome by various emotions, such as envy, pride, or anger, their intelligence decreases. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 1. Or maybe Chapter 14. Anyway, Canto 6. Then it says, it is like fog covering one's vision, and the ability to discriminate and make healthy judgments is compromised. This, of course, applies to everyone, as men also become overpowered by emotions, and they also make decisions they later regret. And then this devotee, then she says that, however, I will now talk about how this is generally more of an issue for women. So she says that although we need to always aim for equality, we cannot at the same time disregard valid differences. Modern science and social science have also proved the difference between men and women's mental and neurological functioning. So she goes on to basically say Srila Prabhupada is giving the Vedic understanding, but then she just mentions, I'll just end with this, just to mention the explanation of modern science as well, and how it kind of comes to the same conclusion that, just reading out, modern science has explained that the mental functioning of a man is based mostly from the left hemisphere of the brain. That of a woman is generally from the right. Left hemisphere of the brain governs cognition, logic, and decision-making processing. In other words, the ability to discriminate and see reality. The right hemisphere governs emotions, meaning-making, and creativity. It means that women generally are better at understanding emotions, better at empathizing, and better at being sensitive. And men are generally better at thinking with logic and rationality. So in one sense, women can believe things to be true based solely on the emotions without seeing the facts, but men can respond too logically when more sensitivity is needed in that situation. And then it says that it explains that women are unable to separate their emotions from logic, whereas men are able to switch between them. But then she makes a good point that there's a huge gray area in between. You know, some men are more right brain functioning, some women are more left brain functioning. So there's no all or nothing. And also obviously in Kali Yuga, it's all muddled up anyway. But yeah, it's basically that there's some difference between the psychologies. And yeah, anyway, I'll share the full article so that we can get the full explanation. But then basically just looking at it from spiritual point of view, what does this mean for us as devotees? So yeah. So obviously, the good news is the more we practice Krishna consciousness, the more these bodily psychological differences they become irrelevant, because Krishna consciousness transcends all material designations. The whole point is to understand that we have been given a certain body based on our material desires and karma. But as we all know, our real identity has nothing to do, with that body. Our real identity is a soul that is eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. But obviously, being in the material world for countless lifetimes, we are strongly conditioned to identify with our bodies. So then naturally, we come across something that appears to criticize our kind of body, then we tend to take offense. We see it as a personal attack. And we forget that actually, I'm neither male nor female. I'm not Hindu, Christian. I'm not British or American, as Srila Prabhupada said often. An important point here, though, if someone is simply trying to put down or devalue those in female bodies or maybe in male bodies from a false sense of ego, then obviously we should challenge that, because that's very harmful. So, no one is saying that such things are acceptable. So if anyone is acting in that way, just trying to put people of the other gender down, then that means we can understand they're not following the Vedic knowledge, actually. They're just twisting it, perverting it for their own selfish ends. And when I discussed this with the Western group, they were saying, that these statements, they come up a few times, in Srila Prabhupada's books. So they were saying, why not remove such? This was just one, suggestion, that why not remove such controversial statements, regarding, such as those regarding female intelligence. If they're causing so much misunderstanding and confusion, why not just remove them? Wouldn't that make things easier? But I kind of said to those who mentioned that, that, I mean, personally, I'm not really in a position to comment on whether such a thing would happen or even whether it should happen, but obviously we all know what devotees would say about changing Srila Prabhupada's books. And also, it can set, it's just a theoretical discussion, but just, it would set a dangerous precedent, that if we're saying, oh, let's edit out these things, then in the future, devotees might be tempted, oh, let's edit this out, let's edit that out, just edit anything, that is difficult to understand, or in this case, anything that goes against the generally accepted viewpoint of this materially conditioned world. For example, these statements. This would make things probably more acceptable to the general mass of people, but it would dilute, the teachings of Krishna consciousness. It would be diluted. And ultimately, the aim of, Krishna consciousness, the aim of this movement is not to tell people what they want to hear, but to give them the real substance of spiritual knowledge. So sometimes, that knowledge can be a difficult pill to swallow, since it forces us to take, a good hard look at the world around us, see it for what it really is. Ultimately, what is it? A place of suffering, which we need to leave so that we can continue our real life with Krishna. So, and, Srila Prabhupada often also said that these kind of statements, they don't apply to devotees anyway, because, devotees have kind of transcended these limitations of their body. And so then they don't identify with that, because they know, maybe I'm in a female body, last time I was in a male body, before that I was in an animal body, or whatever it might be. So then it doesn't make sense to treat it like a personal attack, because it's not a personal attack. It's not about you, it's about the body. But obviously it still can be a difficult issue to discuss, difficult to explain as well, especially if you're in a male body trying to explain this issue, it's more difficult. So obviously I was a bit reluctant to, but obviously it has to be discussed. And just to conclude, sorry, it took a while, but yeah, just to conclude that, so there's a pastimes between Srila Prabhupada and one of his first female disciples, we all know, Yamuna Devi, Yamuna Mataji. And basically there was some occasion where Srila Prabhupada and Yamuna Mataji were at this kind of program. I think it was a house or something. I can't remember the details of the location, but basically Srila Prabhupada was speaking to those who were gathered there. They're not devotees. He's speaking to them, preaching to them. I believe in India. And Yamuna Mataji was there serving in the room and stuff like that. And Srila Prabhupada was, within the course of the conversation, he made some of these statements regarding women that are included in these scriptures. And it seemed that he was kind of, in one way, just trying to see Yamuna Mataji's reaction, or how she was responding to it, or how she was responding to it. And then afterwards, at the end, he said to her, he asked her about these statements and what she thought. And then he said to her that actually you are not a woman, you are a Vaishnava. That's what he said. You're not a woman, you are a Vaishnava. So, none of these things apply to a Vaishnava. So, whatever limitations there are for a female body, for a male body, or an animal body, they all have, as we mentioned earlier, they all have different limitations. But whatever limitations we have, we can, over time, overcome them. That's what the scriptures tell us. And mainly, how do we do that? We do that through hearing and chanting, as we all know, as we've all heard many times. So then it also mentions, after that, it mentions Shudras. Again, as I said earlier, everything is muddled up in Kali Yuga, and it even says in the scriptures, in Kali Yuga, everyone is a Shudra. In Kali Yuga, there's no true Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas. Everyone is a Shudra. Everyone is on that same platform. So basically, what it's saying, in that sense, it's saying Vyasadeva has explained the text of the Vedas in various ways up to the Mahabharata for the understanding of every single person in Kali Yuga. Basically, that's what we can simplify that statement, because everyone is a Shudra. Fallen members of the family of twice born men. So I guess this example we have from the Bhagavatam of Ashwatthama, of someone, and also Shringi, the Samika Rishi's son, who cursed Parikshit Maharaj. We have these examples of fallen members of the family of the Brahmanas. So they are born in family of Brahmanas, but they are fallen because they're not following any of the, they're not doing what a Brahmana should be doing. They don't have any of the qualities of a Brahmana. So they should not be actually considered to be Brahmanas. They're saying all these kind of people, things like the Mahabharata is a lot easier for us to understand. Then just to add a bit more to this last sentence, I think I rushed through it earlier, but it's saying that Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all of them because it has nothing to do with anything mundane. So, we did, like I mentioned, Mahabharata, it includes all these different things like politics, war, economics, sociology, romance, love, friendship, family, so many different things. But then Srimad Bhagavatam, it has all of those things as well, isn't it? Within the pastimes, all of those things happen. Within 10th canto, all of those things happen. There's all kinds of things going on in there. So much drama, especially in the later half of the 10th canto, later half of Krishna's pastimes. The earlier half, or the earlier pastimes, are a lot more simple, if you like, in Vrindavan. Simple pastimes, but then they get a lot more complex, and all these things, all these themes from Mahabharata, they're there as well. But the difference is that they are all, transcendental. because they have nothing, they don't have anything to do with the mundane, as it says here. So yeah, Srimad Bhagavatam basically is saying it's transcendental to, actually, sorry, it's not comparing it to Mahabharata, but it's comparing Srimad Bhagavatam to all of the Vedic scriptures in general, not just Mahabharata. So as we mentioned, yeah, sorry. So as we mentioned earlier about the Vedas, they also cover all those other paths. Like I said, not directly devotional service, but other paths, pious activities and so on and so forth, leading, hopefully lead someone to eventually elevate themselves up to a spiritual life and then, beyond. But Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't have any of that kind of mixed stuff. It doesn't have anything material, it doesn't have anything kind of mixed with devotion. It's all ultimately about pure devotional service. So in that sense, it's transcendental. And it's full of pastimes of Krishna and Krishna's devotees, Krishna's associates. So in that sense also, it's all entirely transcendental. So Shaunaka Rishi is inquiring about transcendental subject matters. So that's why it's very intelligent and relevant. So, and then obviously as devotees, we are also inquiring about transcendental subject matters. We're not inquiring about mundane subject matters. When we go to a Sangha class, the temple, wherever, we don't inquire about mundane things. So therefore, that is very intelligent. So then again, the kind of body you have is irrelevant. If we're inquiring about spiritual life, then we are intelligent. So yeah, that's how I like to conclude that part about intelligence. So we do have, as usual, we do have a bhajan planned for 8:40 after this very nice bhajan. But just before that, any questions or comments or additions? Shailesh Prabhu and Kirti Mataji, I think you've got your hand up.
Krishna Prabhuji, Pranam, Suresh Prabhupada. Thank you for your. It's a difficult subject. You've tried to handle it the best you can in a very short period of time. Can I offer a couple of enhancements to what you've already offered, Prabhuji? Because it's an important area which I think there are certain clarities that are further required, because without that it can quite easily still be misunderstood. I think you've touched upon them, but it's worthwhile if I just re-emphasize those points. I think you've already touched on them because they're really, really important points.
Yes, please.
Firstly, the context is really important. The context of Srila Prabhupada's comments on women, it is not applicable to devotees, as you say. The intelligence that Prabhupada talks about is the Vedic intelligence, and intelligence in Vedic terminology means the ability to differentiate between matter and spirit. It's a very important philosophical sort of difference between how we consider intelligence in the material world compared to Vedic intelligence. So it's the identification with the self and the ability to identify or misidentify with the self. Now, if you are a devotee or a Vaishnava, you've already transcended that identity crisis. So that intelligence comment is largely to material, the material world and material oriented people, not to Vaishnavas. Secondly, I think the hierarchy of this intelligence, as I said, that only applies to non-devotees, doesn't apply to Vaishnavas. Krishna says himself in 10:34, among women, I am fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, and intelligence, steadfastness and patience. Prabhupada himself also in his purports has said the 7 opulences listed, fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfast, and patience are considered feminine. So it's important to put it both ways into context to understand that the intelligence he's talking about is a material designation for the karmi section of the world, of society, not for devotees. And that's the pivotal part. I mean, that misunderstanding lies with a lot of people in terms of Prabhupada's comments. It's mistreated. I think it's misunderstood largely. So I just wanted to highlight that. Again, you've mentioned it. I know you've mentioned it already a couple of times, but I thought it's worthwhile just adding re-emphasis to that. Forgive me if I've interjected there, Prabhuji, but it's such an important area. It's a big contentious issue. If you don't understand what Prabhupada is actually trying to say, then we end up with arguments which are based on false premises, as it were.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shailesh Prabhu. Yeah, it's very important to clarify that as much as we can. Is there any other additions, any other comments or questions? Otherwise, I think it is time for the bhajan. Are we ready for the bhajan?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare
Hema
Krishna.
Mataji is singing a bhajan tonight.
Okay.
Can I ask Jyoti Mataji to please share the lyrics on the screen for Namrata Mataji to read the translation, please? Thank you, Jyoti Mataji. Hare Krishna, Jyoti Mataji. Where's Mataji left? I wonder.
He's still logged in. Do you want me to share it?
Yes, if you could, please.
Remind me, what's the name of the bhajan?
It's Kevalastakam. Kevalastakam.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Namrata Mataji. Oh, you are there. That's good.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hari Bol. Thank you so much for your participation. Is Hema Mataji ready to sing after the recitation?
Yes, Mataji. Thank
Hari
you.
Bol. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Dhanvat Pranam, my humble obeisances to all the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Translation. More sweet than all other sweet things, more auspicious than all other auspicious things, the greatest purifier of all purifying things. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. The entire universe, from exalted Brahma down to the lowly clump of grass, is a product of the illusionary energy of the Supreme Lord. The only thing that is reality, reality, again, I say reality. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. That person is a true preceptor, or a true father, a true mother, and a true friend also, only if they teach one to always remember. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. There is no certainty when the last breath will come and put an abrupt halt to all one's material plans. Therefore, it is wise to always practice chanting from very childhood. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. Lord Hari eternally dwells in that place where truly exalted, spiritually advanced souls sing in the mood of pure devotion. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. Aho, what a sorrow, what a great sorrow, more painful than any other misery in the world. Mistaking it is a mere piece of glass, the people have forgotten this jewel. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. It should be heard again and again with one's tears. It should be uttered over and over with one's voice. It should be perpetually sung and sung anew. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. It makes the entire universe seem insignificant as a blade of grass. It reigns supreme over all in a splendorous manner. It is full of eternally conscious divine ecstasy. It is supremely pure. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. So this is Kevalashtakam that I'm about to sing. It is by Nilkant Goswami from the book called Pancharatnam. Maduram madurebhyo api mangalam vyo api mangalam pavanam pavanebhyo api hare nameva kevalam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Abrahmasambha Paryantam Sarvam Mayam Jagat Satyam Satyam Puna Satyam Hare Nameva Kevalam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sa Guru Sa Pita Chapi Sa Mata Bandhavo Api Sa Sakshaye Cheta Sada Smratam Hare Nam Eva Kevalam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nishwase nahi Vishwasaha Kada Rudho Bhavishyati Kirtaniyamat Balyat Hare Nam Eva Kevalam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hari Sada Vasatatra Yatra Bhagavat Jana Gayanti Bhakti Bhavena Hare Nam Eva Kevalam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Aho Dukham Mahadukham Dukha Dukhataram Yataha Kanjatham Vishamritam Ratna Hare Nameva Kevalam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Diyatam diyatam karano, niyatam niyatam vachaha, giyatam giyatam nityam, Hare nameva kevalam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Trikritya jagat sarvam, rajati sakalopari, Chidananda mayam shuddham, Hare nam eva kevalam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Mahamantra ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Thank you, dear devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol, beautifully sung, Mataji, and Namrata Mataji, so nicely recited. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna, it was really amazing. Both of you expressed so much devotion. Yeah. It's a very, very nice bhajan, all about the glories of the holy name. There's actually, if you have a look in your own time as well, at the bottom, there's a link to, there's a Dandavats article actually, where it's described that originally we had this bhajan and it's called Kevalashtakam, but actually it's not 8 verses, it's 100 verses. It's actually a Shatakam, not an Ashtakam. So this, I think they're slowly discovering the other verses. It's very interesting explanation there actually. But yeah, very beautiful budget. Okay, so that's the end of today's chat session. Hopefully you found something interesting, something that you can take away from the session. And it was definitely helpful for me as well. There's always so much to learn from Srimad Bhagavatam and to learn from all the other devotees. So yeah, thank you to everyone as well for coming and for contributing. And yeah, see you soon. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa
Sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Ananta Koti
Krishna
Vaishnavi.
Vrinda ki jai. Wonderful
Chakra
class,
Day ki.
Prabhuji.
Very nice class.
Very nice.
Thank you,
class.
Prabhuji. Very nice class.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.